right, Tim, welcome back to Damascus Christian School,
Thank you.
Damascus Community Church. Why don't you introduce yourself? Let people know who you are and what your connection is to this place.
Okay. I'm Tim Oakley. I was a principal here for 36 years, started in 1975 and retired in 2011.
Obviously, not every church has a school. You were here 1975, 76 when it started. Why was Damascus Community Church led to have a school? What was the vision? Who was it that was pushing and behind getting a school going at Damascus Community Church?
Well, it was really Pastor Dave Whiting wanted something that would enhance his experience in schooling with his children. Pastor Ross Tunnel, who was pastor of Family Ministries, was also involved in that. And then the church board, what we would call the Elder Council now, was 100% behind it. So with the backing of those men, they asked me if I would come on to a feasibility study committee to see if it was even made sense to have a school. And so we spent a number of months researching church-related Christian schools in the area.
Okay.
And came to the conclusion that it made sense to do it here. We had the facilities that basically were empty during the week and full on Sunday, and so we felt it was a good stewardship to take advantage of that. And so the summer of 1975, Dave and I went to Texas to get some training. Neither of us had ever done a Christian school from the ground up before. And we started with a program called Accelerated Christian Education, ACE, which is an individualized learning packet type thing. And came back and began promoting it within the church here. We had volunteers come in to restructure the rooms and the wiring, and it was just a lot of work in a short period of time. And that September we started with 49 students, preschool through 9th grade, although we did have a 12th grader that was part of the program too.
Okay, first graduate. So what is it that makes a school Christian, and is it still relevant to have a Christian school in today's culture?
More so than ever, to answer the last part of your question.
Yeah.
I believe there are two important elements that make a Christian school Christian. One is the Bible as the foundational part of the educational process. And then the second is the discipleship aspect of helping parents to train their children to be faithful followers of Jesus.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I first came, we would talk often about the cord of three strands.
Yes.
When you have the church
Ecclesiastes.
and the school and the family all working in harmony to try to disciple their kids. Yeah. So you began the school 75, 76. What were some of the early challenges, and how did you see God answer prayer? You know, what was it who was it really that helped get through those early years and those early challenges?
We had a lot of challenges. Again, we were all pretty inexperienced at running a Christian school, so we had to come together with that. We ran into a problem early on with the county saying that we didn't have a proper conditional use permit for the school, and our feeling was the church had a conditional use permit to operate Sunday school. Well, we were thinking that permit would also apply to Monday school through Friday school.
Sure.
So we went ahead and started the school without it. We contended that was our position. Went through the court system all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. They kicked it back down to the lower courts, and they said either get the permit that we're asking you to get or close the doors. And during those times, there was a couple of specific things that I remember, and one was that we were given a deadline. By a certain date, we had to have the permit or the school would be closed. And so we called the church together for days of fasting and prayer. And so we would meet in the auditorium on our knees praying that God would somehow stay the execution. And time and time again we were notified, well, you can go ahead while it's in process. One other specific situation was while we were in court, the judge said, I'm ruling that you must close the school immediately while we get this figured out. And then probably 2 to 3 minutes later, he said, I've changed my mind. You can go ahead and run the school while we try and sort this out.
Oh,
and
wow.
so we just are really confident that it was God answering prayer and that it was his stamp of approval to have a Christian school here at Damascus Community Church.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Wow, some amazing challenges, and we're glad that the school's still here.
yes.
Yeah. So it developed along the way. 49 students, ACE program, now over 200 students, and traditional classroom setting. How did the school develop along the way?
Well, we grew. We doubled our enrollment the second year, and it just about killed us. Just trying to staff it and outfit it and so forth. I'd always had in my mind that we wouldn't stay with the ACE program. And the thing that convinced me was my daughter. I was quizzing her. They had these little tests that they had to take to move on to the next higher level. And I was quizzing her, and she just gave me verbatim the answers. And I said, how do you know this? Well, I know that if I answer this question with these things, I'll get it right. And then I began to question her about, well, what does this mean? Well, I don't know, but I just know if I put this with that, I get it right. And so the next year we moved to a traditional self-contained classrooms
Yeah.
where there was real interaction going on with the teachers and the students at grade level. And we just continued to add a year each year at the high school,
Okay.
develop different programs, drama, choir, orchestra, the gymnasium, sports programs, computer labs, science labs, all of those things that really enhance the education of the children
Yeah.
that are in
Good.
place.
And eventually the school became accredited. You really drove that accreditation process. Why was that important, and how does that benefit the school even today?
Yeah, it's a good question. Accreditation simply means that you meet or exceed standards that are set up as best practice for education. And so you're given this manual, and you have a couple of years to get through it, and you begin to measure what you're doing with what they say are best standards. And so we decided to go with dual accreditation, so we're accredited with the public sector, the state, as well as through ACSI, Association of Christian Schools International. And we took the standards established by ACSI because they were frankly higher. And so we just spent time, the teachers, myself, parents, students, church staff, in going through this and saying, how do we measure up to this standard? Are the things that we need to start doing that we're not doing? Are the things that we're doing that maybe we should stop doing so that we meet this standard? And it was a rigorous program, but it made the school much more effective, and it gives credibility to parents that are looking at putting their children in.
And to the graduates who are looking into college.
Exactly. It allows them to go to whatever school they want to go if they qualify.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some definite advantages to it.
So the school's always been a ministry of Damascus Community Church. In fact, when that early challenge came from the court, one of the defenses was this is a ministry of the church, and the
Right.
church is permitted to operate. So what ongoing benefit does that connection of the school to the church have, both spiritually, to keep the school spiritually healthy, but also give it some financial sustainability?
From the beginning, I loved the idea of a church-related school. There just seemed to be some built-in positive aspects that you don't get with an independent parent-run school. One is the stability of his history and tradition of the doctrine that's been established and settled. That's not an issue. You don't have to sort that out. And so we just simply came in underneath the church doctrine, the church teaching. We were saying the same thing. And the buildings were here. Again, they were vacant most of the week, and so we filled them up.
Yeah, we did. Still do.
Yeah, still do. And we realized that it was an inconvenience for a lot of the church people that didn't have school-age children, and walls were getting scuffed, and there was noise, and there was limitations of what rooms you could use because there was a fifth grade class in that room. And so we just appreciated the graciousness of the people that just said, well, it's an inconvenience, but we see the value of it.
Yeah.
And then financially, it allowed us to keep a lower tuition than an independent Christian schools did
Mhm.
because the facilities were here. And the school helped to maintain and to kick in on the janitorial staff and the maintenance and upkeep and so forth. But still being able to keep the tuition low, which I checked this morning, in fact, just before coming, tuitions of private schools, Christian schools in the Portland area, they range anywhere from $11,000 on up to $35,000 per student per year.
Mhm.
Damascus, I'm assuming, is no longer,
Not quite
it
there.
doesn't have that tuition schedule,
Yeah.
so
Not quite.
yeah, it's a tremendous benefit.
Well, and from our church side, from the spiritual ministries of any church, we view this as an expansion. We have an opportunity 5 days a week, not just one, to reach 200 students and their families,
Yeah.
and view that as an important part of all that we do.
And I think that's an important part. You mentioned families because it's that threefold cord that we talked about earlier in Ecclesiastes, where you have the church, you have families that hopefully are training and teaching and leading spiritually, and then you have the school to reinforce those three things. And it's good.
So on a personal level, DCS was the majority of your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, 36?
36 years. Mhm.
And my significant involvement as a senior pastor of a church that has this Christian school has now been over half of my career. Tell me, has it been worth it? All of our kids graduated from
Yep.
Damascus Christian School. Has it been worth it, and would you do it again?
Has it been worth it personally?
Personally?
Yes, I would say yes. I hated to see summer come because school closed down.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do? It's a quiet building. And then late July, early August, the juices started flowing, and things started happening, and teachers came back, and I loved that. I loved that, and I loved the fact that we were part of the educational ministry of Damascus Community Church. And I love that tie-in. I love the security. I love the safety that it gave. I love the foundation that it laid to be able to have a school saying the same thing that the church was saying.
What would you say to those parents who continue to make the sacrifices necessary to invest in the Christian education of their kids?
First of all, acknowledging that it is a sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice, particularly for some that are just barely making it. And I would just say it's worth it. I know there's some financial assistance that is given, and I know it's not a great deal, but if you qualify, take advantage of that to keep your kids in the school. I think particularly as I read and hear about what's going on in the public sector and some of the perverse things that are being incorporated within the curriculum there, here you have something that supports the family values, the church values. It just reinforces that. It's modeled day in and day out. And I would just say, if it's at all possible, do whatever it takes to keep your kids here.
Yeah. Well, Tim, thanks. Appreciate you coming back to share in this time, and I thank you for your leadership of the school over the years.
Likewise, thank you for stepping in and embracing the school and having your kids here. That was a great thing.
Been a good blessing to us.
It is.
Yeah. Thanks.